On behalf of the Smith Mountain Lake Democrats, I'd like to welcome Sam Rasoul to our forum. Sam is a member of the House of Delegates representing District 11, which is Roanoke, and has been there since 2014. So Sam, my name is Jim Bennett, and I will be serving as the moderator today. Just to recap what we sent out in our email, you'll have 3 minutes for opening remarks, and following that, I'll be asking you a series of questions about several topics. One, you'll have 2 minutes to respond, and at the end, you'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement. So we'll have a yellow card when there's 30 seconds left, and a red card when the time is up for each question. So with that, Sam, your opening remarks.
Well, it is great to be back with Smith Mountain Lake Democrats, and I know we got people from Franklin and Bedford and just a bunch of ornery folks for sure. Jim, Denise, and so many others, and the cars. I just see it's great to be back with you all, albeit virtual. One day soon, hopefully, we'll get back to the HQ down there near the bridge and be in person. I have loved being able to serve. Many of you know, while I represent Roanoke, I feel like I represent all of Western Virginia in all this, and have tried to be there for everyone. I'm in my 8th year now already, Denise. Can you believe it? 8th year in the General Assembly. I was there in the deep dark days when we were at 32 in the House, and now we're up to 55, and want to make sure we keep that train rolling for sure. Look, I've been able to build broad coalitions as a child of immigrants, growing up in a working class family in the western part of Virginia. It was always about what those coalitions are in policy and politics. I've been able to pass legislation around expanding who can administer vaccines, around integrating social and emotional standards into our K-12 education system, pushing for health equity by bringing a nursing program down to deep Southwest Virginia, and at the same time pushing for intersectional justice by uplifting economic, social, and environmental intersectionality in so many ways. And all of that is just in the past year. But for me, the coalitions in the work we do politically has been so important. You all have helped to champion the Democratic promise, where we've brought in better ways to win and bring folks together. My time in the legislature has put me with the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus and the Virginia Legislative Rural Caucus, and I'll tell you, equity is what has united us. And leading with those values is important. We raise our kids with always tell the truth, always be kind, and never give up. My wife and I do. And that truth, love, and grit has been so important in how we structure the whole campaign, elevating the truth and through a people's platform, where we've developed a Marshall Plan for moms, and because women have disproportionately been impacted economically during this time. You all have heard about Democratic Promise, and then visiting every city and county in person in a safe way through Virginia Grit. Look, Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it best: fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that leads others to join you. I'd love to join you in elevating your voice, and I'd be honored to do that as your next Lieutenant Governor. So with that, I'm happy to take any of your questions, Jim, and all the hard ones I'm going to defer back to Denise.
All right. Well, so how do you feel the Lieutenant Governor can best support the governor's agenda? And specifically, what do you see as the most important issues for Southwest Virginia?
Yeah, so for me, I see the role as, casting those important tie-breaking votes, utilizing the LG's position to elevate issues that have been pretty important to me, working with the incoming governor, whoever she or he may be, to try to complement their role. And for me, being able to bring a regional perspective or a healthcare perspective, with my background being in healthcare administration, my passion for holistic child development, and the environmental work that we've done. Those are some things that I hope that I'll be able to help the next administration coming in with for sure. And so for me, while we're doing all of that, in addition, we want to be doing some party building. And through the Impact Center I started 4 years ago, through bringing in Democratic Promise, I think that, we can't let this be about a pendulum swing and it's just our turn to be in charge. We have got to make ground everywhere. And unfortunately, sometimes, well, we make some ground here, we lose some ground over there. And so I can't wait to do some more party building at the state legislative level to empower local Democratic committees through Democratic Promise, through the Impact Center, and through some new ideas, because what we remember is voting is not a logical decision. I know we love our facts and logic, us liberals, but voting is an emotional decision. And it's based on these relationships that we build over time. And we want to show that there's a better way to win. And to me, this is how we grow our party long-term for sure. And that's how we'll move the needle on, educational equity, on broadband access, on health equity for all for Southwest Virginia.
All right, great. So what is your opinion on adjusting the funding formula for K-12 public schools to help rural schools, but also expanding pre-K and offering free community college?
Well, that's like 3 questions, Jim.
Yeah, well,
come on now.
Come on.
All right.
I'm
gonna try to break this down. So first, in our Marshall Plan for moms, we talk about the need to really close the gap for 0 to 5 as far as childcare, including then after school care. This is a critical piece that in Virginia we have a variety of parts, but it hasn't really come together. We still have a large percentage of children who are not covered, and that means fully utilizing some of the federal funds that come down where we can expand who qualifies, expanding the Virginia Preschool Initiative, the VPI, and then also thinking through, what we're going to do for after school care. Now, the funding formula is quite a complicated and complex thing. I would all be in favor of making sure that we adjust it where there's more equity in the dollars that we send to rural schools and poor school districts. The issue is if you open it up right now with Democrats in charge, that actually can be a problem because Democrats in charge are in Northern Virginia and it doesn't favor us. So the answer to your question is yes, let's do it. But the problem is that we might not come out the best in it. So what can we do? Increase funding that goes into what's called at-risk add-on. That is a more equitable way of putting dollars in the short term. And then thinking through school construction funds and how we help these localities. And when I heard a legislator from our party from Northern Virginia say, why can't y'all just tax yourselves and build yourselves new schools? That's when I, start to scratch my head and say there's a regional issue here for sure.
What, in your opinion, is the best approach to making high-speed and affordable and quality internet access a reality to all Virginians, including those in Southwest rural areas?
Well, I think we should have a giant hotspot at the Bennett's house, and then everybody can just have a big old party there. You want to talk about one issue that brings everybody together. Republicans, Democrats, all are talking about broadband, and you're going to hear people talk about it all day long. Here is the difference. The cable companies have not been our friends. They are not interested in being solid partners in the solution to this. It needs to be declared a public utility where we have control over the infrastructure, and that way we build it out. Right now, they only want to maximize the profit off of every mile that is built out. And they have sadly gotten in the way. We have this broadband advisory committee where they pretty much run the show there, and they produce solutions which are unfortunate. I'm going to be releasing a broadband plan here shortly that's going to talk about specifics where we can embolden these what we call broadband authorities so that they can provide funding for their own infrastructure. Number 2, mandate all the broadband providers to have an affordable plan that is really in your best interest, as something that you can actually Zoom with. Number three, giving bonding authority to some of these localities and other entities that need to be able to build out this infrastructure, so they're not utilizing just their operating funds in order to do it. And lastly, just repealing some of this these archaic laws that unfortunately get in the way of having competition. Because right now, remember, accessibility is two things: it's infrastructure and affordability, and we've got to have both in moving forward.
Okay. So I see the Green New Deal over your right-hand shoulder on your wall. So what priority do you think should be given to the Virginia Green New Deal? And do you support rebates for solar panel home installation and a buyback program of unused energy?
So as someone who has solar panels and got a great deal because of the federal plan, where I got 30% back on my solar panels, I loved it because it made things far easier for me. We should definitely be doing more of that at the state level because, North Carolina did it starting over a decade ago, and they're way ahead of us as far as solar is concerned. So that's for sure. Fundamentally, here's what a Green New Deal is about: approaching the environmental crisis with the fierce urgency that it deserves, in a way that intentionally uplifts communities economically that need it the most. That is what a Green New Deal is about in Virginia. And my bill, the Green New Deal Act, specifically lays that out. And it calls for a comprehensive climate action plan that would have mandates as with regards to where these investments go and the communities that need to be uplifted, all in such a way that does not increase your electric bill unnecessarily by 40%, just to give AEP and Dominion a lot of funds. Sadly, we passed a bill last year, and everyone that's under Dominion is going to see a 40% increase in their bill. That, they're regulated. To me, that is unethical to have any kind of environmental plan that exacerbates income inequality. That is never the way we should be approaching environmental solutions, for sure, because it undermines us in the long run. In a few years, Republicans are going to be able to say, "I told you so," and they're going to be right. We jacked up the electric bills and we didn't have to. So let's make sure we're thinking intersectionally about it.
Okay. What specifically would you do to help those most impacted economically by the coronavirus, specifically the poor, women, and minorities?
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to revisit the Marshall Plan for Moms that we outlined several weeks ago, I'm sure many of you all saw the economic impact, the devastation that women specifically have felt during this downturn. And I held a town hall with some of these women, and I expected to hear, "I lost my job and things have been difficult paying bills." I expected all that. What really took me back and what was very hard to hear was careers being thrown off, the mental health and the anguish that people have been going through, the not knowing, even when my kids get back in school, or my grandkids get back in school, for some of those caregivers, what is going to be next? I can't just get back into the workforce. I won't be able to just get my old job back. And so it's sad. So there's a couple of things in the Marshall Plan for Moms that outlines paid family leave, paid sick leave, a caregiver tax credit. So if you're caring for some of our older Virginians, wanting to make sure that you're supported in that way, as well as several other pieces. But economically as well, to think about Main Street businesses who've been impacted. And I think that there's a lot that we can be doing. I favored the reinvestment into what's called Rebuild Virginia, and we put some more money. But I also called on the legislature and governor after the surplus was announced last week to put some of that surplus into the Rebuild Virginia program. And we can be doing little things like making sure that the smallest businesses, these micro businesses, get a sales tax rebate so they can keep more of the tax that they're bringing in, maybe up to those kind of first $25,000 in sales. These are ways that we can be supporting our small businesses.
All right, great. Again, what is your view on prison reform, cash bail, and expungement? And what is your stance on private prisons?
And private prisons, we made some reforms on expungement, but we've got more to do for sure, because it's quite a long process, but we've at least started it. We should end cash bail because it's just it's a regressive approach to criminal justice. There's nothing about justice. It's just if you can afford your bail, then you get out. If you can't, you can't. And as far as the first part of the question with regards to criminal justice reform in general, was that the first part, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I've learned over my past 8 years in the General Assembly is since 1980, there's been this war on drugs, war on crime mantra that the conservatives have really owned for a while. And what that has done is left us on our heels as Democrats. And the last thing we want is to be quote unquote soft on crime. And sadly, it has really been, we've been allowing them to control the narrative. We need to control that narrative and talk about community prosperity. And that prosperity means, ending those private prisons, making sure that we reduce recidivism rate, stop pumping. In Virginia, we put $1.2 billion into our Department of Corrections. Those are dollars that that some of those dollars could be better spent in our society. But it all begins with recapturing the narrative that we want prosperity for our communities.
So last question. If you could pass or influence the passing of any one piece of legislation, what would it be and why would that be your highest priority?
Democracy reform. So now I'm on my wish list. All right. So in democracy reform, I'm going to utilize that because I'm a politician. I'm going to utilize that to say a couple of things. But number one is campaign finance reform, specifically banning donations from public service corporations. Many times we just do not get to make good decisions for Virginians. Unfortunately, because there's just so much money in the system. That's why my campaign is 100% funded by individuals. And we want to be the first campaign in history in Virginia statewide to win 100% funded by individuals. And then, you would want to come up with democracy reform, which opens things up, which lessens the partisanship. To me, I introduced a bill that would have ranked choice voting with a 2-round system. And so instead of having these primaries like we're having right now, you would actually have a 2-round system where everybody runs in the first round and the top 4 or 5 vote getters go on to the general election. They do this in several states, in California, Nebraska, Louisiana, Washington State. Some people call it an open primary. And in this multi-round system, it actually, where it's open, where Republicans and Democrats run together in the first round, and people from other walks of life, then they are able to try to appeal to everyone. So imagine that, not just stuck in our camps but finding innovative ways to try to make a broader appeal. I just think it makes for a healthier democracy in many respects. And so that would be on my dream list. And I hope one day we'll get to some of that campaign finance reform that this Commonwealth needs.
All right, great. Well, Sam, that's the questions. You've got 2 minutes for closing statement.
Well, it is great to be back with you all so much. I've really appreciated the questions. I think it's not fair that Jim got to do all the talking in all of it. But it has, I think that there are a lot of thoughtful questions that hopefully you get to kind of see the broad philosophy that we have in a lot of this. But look, here's what I've learned is that in these 8 years, there's the body of knowledge of what is wrong and the policy that is wrong, and then the body of knowledge of how to fix it. And how to fix it and what is wrong are two separate bodies of knowledge. In other words, most of what we need to do to fix the stuff that's wrong has to be in the organizing, has to be in the showing up, in building those relationships. We've got to aggressively challenge the way we do business. And I think that, you know, while we're excited about the Biden-Harris administration, and I've seen so many good things come out thus far, we know that we've got a lot of work to do for 2021, 2022, and 2024 for sure. So, you know, what we want to do is be able to leverage this. I feel like, you know, I bring the most experience to the field. We've been able to raise the most money, have a broad range of endorsements from the United Rural Democrats to the Sunrise Movement. We are building something better and showing that there is a better way to win. And that's what we're out to prove. And I can't do it without you all. I'm asking for your personal endorsements, your support in this with 39 days left before early vote. I know you all bring a lot of energy, and I would love to have your support in getting us to the finish line. So thank you so much to the Smith Mountain Lake Democrats for having me today.
Sam, as always, thanks for joining us today. And just so you're aware, actually, none of the questions were mine, and I got volunteered by somebody else to ask them. So.
That's all right. That's all right. I love hearing from you, and we all know you've watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right?
Yeah.
The movie. That it doesn't matter that the man is speaking in the head, because it's the woman that's controlling the neck. Yeah. We know who the real power brokers are in this group, Jim, and it ain't you.
Yeah, I know.
It ain't you.
So many of us know you. It's important that we hear your views on subjects that we have not heard you address before. Best of luck. And as a plug, for the next SML Democrats General Meeting, we look forward to hearing from you next week with your update on the most recent General Assembly session. So once again, Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for all you all do. Be well. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now.